Democrats are finally realizing that their sanctuary city policies might have been a mistake. We've got shenanigans happening in so many of the big blue sanctuary cities. Some are reconsidering. Let's get into the shenanigans we've got going on. Here we go. Footage earlier this month of an illegal immigrant flipping the bird at reporters after being arrested and then released following the assault of a police officer in New York City perfectly summed up the dilemma sanctuary cities such as New York find themselves in. They put themselves in there. They put themselves in there. They box themselves in, and they expect the government to give them a handout. You know, in big boating world, there's always a joke, horrifically wealthy individuals who drive just monster boats, like the ultra yachts and the super yachts and the mega super yachts. You know, they got categories for all that. There's the joke that is, how come out on the water you don't see a lot of Democrats driving boats? Well, because the federal government isn't handing out yachts. And it's a joke, but it's also pretty damn true, because the backstop for so many of these big blue Denver, New York, Chicago, Seattle, Portland, the backdrop for all of these governmental authorities in these super liberal cities is that the federal government needs to be their backstop and have their back and funding. We've heard Eric Adams, we've heard Let's Go Brandon Johnson in Chicago talk repeatedly about, we need some federal money here because we're running out. Well, you're running out because you chose to. So there's that. And then you've got other Republican cities going, yeah, we don't want to take any. But that's not our thing. We know we don't have the resources for it. We're not going to do it. We can't afford it. We can't put our tax-paying citizens at jeopardy of not having other resources get taken care of. In Denver right now, they are literally cutting city employees' hours so that they have the budget to keep funding the illegals. Think about that. Think about that. You're a tax-paying citizen, and yet somebody that should be working, doing stuff for you civic-wise had their job basically cut. They're temporarily laid off, whatever, for stuff for you so that there's more money for the illegals coming in. Yeah, that's where we get this. Maybe the policies were a mistake. Overeager to prove their liberal bona fides, these cities have welcomed and protected thousands of criminal immigrants who just so happen to realize that they can flout the law without consequence. And now they're stuck with them. That's where we sit right now. They're stuck. And as our weather progresses and you have more and more of the migrants coming across the border, which you will have, it's a seasonal deal, January being the low point. We've just come out of that. Now it's ramp up time. You've got shenanigans for days, because not only are you dealing with the brand new folks coming in, you are dealing with the 7.4 million that have already come in under the Biden administration. Let's cut to a couple of those clips here. We're going to get back to that article, but these are the flout the law without consequence, and now they're stuck with them. They're stuck with people like this. A Democrat U.S. Senate candidate from California said Monday that she opposes reshaping immigration policy based solely off a migrant suspected murder of a Georgia nursing student. This is that major headline case in Georgia. Representative Katie Porter, Democrat from California, told CNN that the benefits of creating economic opportunity, giving jobs to the migrants, should be considered during immigration policy making, despite the case of Laken Riley, who died from blunt force trauma while jogging. Don't think about her. Don't think about how her parents feel like. My daughter went out for a jog and she got her skull bashed in. Yeah, by an illegal. Don't think about her. You know, that's just one bad apple does not make the shopping cart, whatever you want to say there. I don't really care. She goes on to say, Katie Porter, the Democrat from California, The important thing is to focus on any one instance, is to focus on any one instance shouldn't shape our overall immigration policy unless you are Lake and Riley's parents and your kid has got a bashed in skull and is dead. Yeah. And all the other people who are going, you know what? That illegal got caught once and you did the catch and release. Now we've got, this poor young lady with a bashed in skull and she is no longer with us. So overall immigration policy, which has so many different facets, including economic choices about what workers to allow in and how to create prosperity in America. So she's arguing, hey, you got to look at the overall picture. Yeah, but this kid just died. So what about that? Let's take a hard look at that and what happened there. Police found Riley dead with a disfigured skull Thursday and arrested Jose Antonio Ibarra, who illegally entered the U.S. in 2022 on Friday. Officials previously arrested Ibarra for unlawfully crossing the border, driving under the influence, and shoplifting. Okay. But we're saying he's just one bad apple. We know we've got dozens. We've got thousands. We have caught 170-ish known fugitives, known terrorists from the terrorist watch list, close to 40,000 convicted felons, charges like that coming in from other countries all over the world. We've intercepted them at the border. This isn't a one-off bad apple. You've got, just statistically speaking, you let 7 point whatever million into the country, you're going to have more than a couple of bad apples like this dude here. After crossing the border, Ibarra told officials he was seeking asylum in the United States, but failed to file an asylum claim in court after being transported to New York City. These guys do not care because they know that if they're in the right city, New York City isn't doing anything to expel them because they've got that whole sanctuary city deal. They're not working with Customs and Border Protection. And that's why now you're hearing Eric Adams start to talk about, you know what? Maybe, just maybe, we should, coordinate with Customs and Border Protection because things are getting out of hand. I got to say, things are getting out of hand. Kind of like the topic of this segment, right? Oh, maybe we made a mistake. President Joe Biden has considered using executive action to address the border crisis. That will be the next hot spot for him, and that will not go well. The Immigration and Nationality Act, Section 212F. Remember 212F. This continually comes up. This is the executive action that he is looking at taking, which Trump did with, who was it? Muslims. He said no more Muslims. And everybody's like, racist, orange man bad, racist. Now Biden's looking at doing the same darn thing, using 212F, which allows presidents to suspend or restrict migrants' entry into the U.S. should it detrimentally oppose U.S. interests. That's on the table, according to the Associated Press. From a political standpoint, what I would say there is that if he does that, he has basically diametrically opposed exactly what he said about the border for the last 3 years. And all of a sudden, at election time, day late, dollar short, because it's not going to really have that much of an impact, right? What he could be doing is what Greg Abbott is doing in Texas right now. Just tell the Customs and Border Protection, hey, you know what? Don't act as a babysitter to get these folks across the border. Push back on them. Kind of like Trump did. Weird. Executive action. He's taken 64 executive actions in his presidency. He stopped building the wall. He did all kinds of stuff, just absolutely backward. He doesn't need more money. He just needs to enforce the law in the books already. But he's not going to do that. He's just posturing right now. It's an election year and he doesn't know what to do. He's hosed. Halting migration would leave U.S. immigration issues unsolved due to entry processes, underlying problems that were emphasized by previous border policies. Well, you let millions of people into the country, you're going to have to live with that. They're not just going to magically disappear. Oh, things are looking good here, folks. Should be fine. It's all good. Representative Porter stated that her colleagues have noted the border has various issues she believes President Joe Biden needs to address as he prepares to visit Brownsville. Why did he pick Brownsville? Does anybody know? Let me know in the comments if you think you know. Why Brownsville? Obviously, because Trump probably chose Eagle Pass first, right? Because he's going where the real action has been. That is where Abbott has continually had his speeches. He had the 16 Republican governors. He had the Republicans from his state there. And recently he had another news conference. I can't remember what that was all about. But he's just been going ham. And actually, everybody jokes about, well, we need some more transparency. He's going down there in his wheelchair and having a big speech. And, one of them, he had the National Guard there behind him. He's actually just laying things out on the line. And I covered one of his speeches. We watched him talk and kind of how he just goes here and here and here and here. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I can't disagree with them. Biden needs to do that, but he can't because it would look so bad politically because it would be the opposite of what he's been doing. And then all he'd have to say is, well, should have been doing this all along, but I wasn't because of, why has he been doing this? That's the question. That's the 24 karat gold question, right? One of the things I've heard over and over again in oversight committee hearings is that our southern border isn't a monolith, she recalled. The challenges that our border personnel and communities face are different in areas where it's more rural. No kidding. That's what the Republicans have been saying this whole damn time, right? Where there are different cities depending on geography and depending on where migrants are going. Well, when you tell migrants from all over the world it's go time, guess what they do? They go. They came here and they're here. And I think we have a large surge coming right now, coming up through Mexico. And wouldn't that make sense? You've got an election that's in play. We're not sure if our guy's going to be there much longer that's going to let us in and just hold our hand and then give us all kinds of resources. That orange man bad. He might kick our asses. He might not let us in. He might actually have Customs and Border Protection do the job that they're tasked with. And nope, you guys, you're gonna have to go back to Mexico. You're gonna have to wait in Mexico, remain in Mexico policy. You can instill that instead of doing the crazy mass parole where you just bring people in, you write their name down and cut them loose until they get a job. He could cut that down as well. Mass parole. It's only meant for a few instances, and it's not meant for the millions that have come across the border. Biden will visit the border the same day as former President Donald Trump, who will deliver remarks in Eagle Pass, Texas. Interesting that both of them are going to be in Texas on the same day. Just, what is that, a few hundred miles apart? I think it is. Here is the county of San Diego considers asking Biden to shut down the border. What about your virtue signaling and just bringing everybody in and kumbaya moment? Now you're saying shut the border. Does that mean that you think the border is not closed? If you're asking Biden to close it down, does that mean that you're thinking it's not closed? Yeah, you've seen the people just streaming into San Diego area. And I know I haven't emphasized it enough. They're not just all going to San Diego. They're going to other points. They're just getting in there, right? Because Texas is now the hot spot. It's where Abbott is just razor wiring up that border. He's got his National Guard doing work and very few crossings. That's why I laugh when I talk about Biden going to Brownsville. It's like, what are you going to do there? But nobody's crossing there. They're big guy, 10% for the big guy. Officials penned letter to congressional leaders urging them to support bipartisan immigration reform bill. Well, that's a thing of the past, and that just went wildly sideways, didn't it? Because it didn't make any sense. In response to Border Patrol agents releasing thousands of migrants at transit centers around San Diego in recent days, the county board of supervisors considered asking President Joe Biden to shut down the border as a way to prevent street releases of asylum seekers. What a bunch of jokers. Good Lord, we got a lot of people in San Diego. Man, we've got some bodies here. Yeah, take care of them all. Yo, Joe, could you shut her down for a little bit? Do you remember back in December? And I wasn't following this topic as much in December. I should have been. I should have been following this way earlier, but it wasn't really on my radar. I didn't understand the full significance of what, Seattle is so far away that we just don't get a lot of migrants up here, illegals up here. Now we are, and it's going to be feisty. It's going to be spicy. It's going to be shenanigans. We've got shenanigans. Yesterday, Seattle City Council had a bunch of people. Where were they from? Protesters. They're protesting the migrants not being allowed to stay in a church or being booted out or something in Tukwila, which is south of Seattle. Just more cluster, just like, all right, yeah. Well, there's not enough resources for all the homeless people in Seattle already because we have self-proclaimed Seattle to be a drug, free zone, not drug free, but bring your drugs in and, do your drugs here along with so many other West Coast cities. And we're trying to fight back on that. But you don't have the resources for the homeless, don't have the resources for the illegals that make it here. The whole thing is just, it's a whacked out mess. Supervisors also debated how to seek federal funding to keep a migrant welcome center open permanently to avoid migrants being released in public. And that's the big thing in San Diego. Probably 1,000 a day are being released there now. Could be 1,500. And you've got the big migrant center there that was handling the big influx of people coming in, got closed down because they blew through their budget. They blew through their budget. I did a separate podcast on that. A lot of people want to say, well, was there shenanigans? What's the reason that the budget got burned up so quickly? In my opinion, and reading through all the stuff that I have, I don't think anybody's running off with the money. It's just you had such a deluge of people, a siege of people come into San Diego that they blew through their money because XYZ number per migrant that comes in, you got to take care of this, take care of that. All that stuff is expensive. Human beings are essentially expensive. Need a place to stay. They need a bus fare somewhere. Somebody has a baby. The city hospital's got to take on that expense. Got all kinds of stuff that just food, snacks. And that's not even getting into, let's give them housing for XYZ years. Let's give them a $10,000 debit card. Do you think Mayor Eric Adams in New York City is rethinking and reimagining that $10,000 debit card? That's not a good look, is it? Then you got old pointy mohawk head. Let's go Brandon Johnson. That guy can't work his way out of a wet paper bag, can he? And he doesn't know which way he's coming or going. What am I doing? Am I having a panic attack? Do I need to go to the hospital again? He's got so much pressure on him because it's a situation all these big cities are in. It's a situation they can't really work out of. Because what are they going to do? Deport them all? I thought you were a sanctuary city. We are. That doesn't look very sanctuary-like. The hard reality is there's no more room at the inn. Since Friday, more than 2,000 asylum seekers have been released at transit centers in San Diego County, according to Supervisor Jim Desmond. Both issues led to hours-long debate and public comment during Tuesday's meeting. That was a barn burner. I saw some of that footage. There's some people that are wildly upset, and I don't blame them. What are you doing? How are you spending our money? When Ukrainians, here's the one woman. When Ukrainians arrived in 2022, we welcomed them with open arms, which is exactly what we should have done, said one woman. But why is it when the majority of asylum seekers are Black and Asian, there's a call to shut down the border? Well, I think you knew who the Ukrainians were. And I talked a little bit about the mass parole happening earlier. Well, when you've got a huge influx of people, and this is what the parole is meant for. Like when we had people from Afghanistan, when the Taliban did their thing, when we had massive people from Afghanistan coming into the United States, we did a parole, which is, all right, before they get their work visa or something along those lines, before they're officially in the United States, we can parole them with a court hearing and, bond process, whatever that might be. And that became a regular thing. But that wasn't meant to be for 7.4 million people. But that's what's happened. So kind of this illegal use of mass parole is one of the tools that Biden has used to bring in all these millions of people. So when you say Ukrainians versus who's coming in now, she's trying to play the race card. Hey, they're Black and Asian and you guys want to close down the border. What's up with that? Well, And you got some Chinese in there as well, right? Let's not be completely racist. The problem is you haven't vetted these folks. Most of the folks that came from Ukraine, yeah, they're escaping a war. Little different story, right? Little different story, just a scooch different. Because the folks we have coming in now, we don't know where they're coming from. We don't know what they're doing. I was watching a JLR Investigates video yesterday, and he was going over all of the torn up documents that you find at the end where the migrants finally come through into the U.S. territory. They come around the fence because the fence just stops in Yakumba Hot Springs. You find all these documents, and it's because they don't want the U.S. to know who they are. They don't want to be able to track them because there's something in their history. It's been okay so far getting here. They've been able to use that ID, been able to use that paperwork. Now they no longer lead it. They just kind of tear it up and throw it on the good old US of A's ground, and it's good. It'll mulch up. It'll mulch up in the desert. Should be fine. Others who spoke were very much in favor of shutting down the border. So you've got this real divergence, right? You've got these bleeding heart liberals. Take everybody in. F the budget. We don't care. God bless America. Migrants forever. And you've got these other people like, no, we don't have the budget. We don't have the tax base to do this. We can't afford our own folks. We're ignoring veterans in our own community. We're ignoring homeless in our own community. We're ignoring all this to make room for these other people. No. So it's really galvanizing kind of where people sit, isn't it? Who are these people? Where are they from? They're not being vetted. We have no idea who they are. And are they coming from gangs? Are they coming from prisons? Are they trafficking drugs? Said Kelly J. I had somebody ask me this morning, they said literally, and I understand. I had somebody ask me this morning, hey, don't take offense to this, but do you think your son would have died? My son would have died from a drug overdose if he lived in a small Idaho town of maybe 2,000. And my thought to that is, maybe. But you know what? Some of the small towns that I look at have been the most hard hit of any towns out there, just overrun with meth, overrun now with fentanyl. Drugs are everywhere. And that's why this is, you can look at me and raising my kids in Bellevue, and then my sons both living in Seattle. I told my youngest son, I don't think it's a great idea, especially your girlfriend's pretty cute. And you're moving into kind of the area he was in was on a hillside that was really nice, but there's shenanigans. There's shenanigans block or two away in homeless encampments. Andrea Suarez found a body that had been there since maybe 2015. We don't know. Multiple bodies have been found kind of in the woods on the northeast end of Queen Anne. And so my son moved there, and I told him, I'm not real pumped about you living in Seattle, especially in that neighborhood, but okay, you want to go do your thing. All right, whatever. That's not what killed him. What killed him was, you've got these crazy drugs that, number one, he chose to take. Not a good call, but he didn't think he was taking something with fentanyl. Nobody does, I don't think, when they take it on accident. He was taking a Xanax bar. And then just the fact that they're so easy to come by in a city like Seattle, that's some of what I blame. You've made that vacuum pull of all those drugs up that southern border into Seattle. You've made that a reality. And so we're just overrun with drugs. But drugs are everywhere, right? You find me a community where they're not. I was reading some stories about Alaska, remote areas of Alaska. Everybody knows when the drugs are coming because there's only a few people that bring them there. And when they come, it's like they go gangbusters because they haven't had them for a while. And they're going to go ham, right? It's go time. Let's do this. It's party. So where you live, living in a small town, I think it's a crapshoot. It's a crapshoot of what drugs you get, whether, and I hope that doesn't come off as flippant, but, or trying to justify how all this is going. But that's why, and what I'm coming to is that it's not just the southern border states that are suffering during all this. It's all states, because look at the number of overdoses that are happening. They're happening way far away from the border. Portland, San Francisco, Seattle, and everybody knows it. Everybody knows where these drugs are coming from. And that's just one part of this whole ridiculousness. And we know where they're coming, how they're getting here. The Hondurans, the Hondos are bringing them here. They're operating the sales of drugs in Seattle, in Portland, in San Francisco, whole West Coast. You see them get busted all the time. They're from Honduras. Oh, that's not shocking, right? You're building big communities there with, mega mansions. They're, Honduran styled, and they're flying the San Francisco 49ers flag because that's where they learned to do their, gangster stuff and their drug stuff. And now they're making money. And, it's a wild scenario, right? After several hours of testimony from both the public and supervisors, the idea to seek federal funding to keep the migrant center permanently open passed. However, the motion to ask the border to be closed down was struck down when a substitute concept was introduced. This should be good, right? Board of Supervisors Chairwoman Nora Vargas and Vice Chair Tara Lonson Remmer presented a new item to send a letter of support for a bipartisan immigration reform bill to fix the border. You don't need that. You just need to enforce the border you already have. That's what you need to do. Oh, yeah. Okay. We don't really understand what's going on down there anyway. So let's just push for the bipartisan immigration reform bill. The notion read as follows: direct the interim chief executive administrative officer to send a letter. All right, we're sending a letter now to the majority leader, Chuck Schumer, and the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, to work with President Biden to pass a bipartisan immigration reform bill to fix the border by addressing the delays in processing asylum. Okay, you're not pushing back on people coming in. You're saying, make it so that they can come in faster, increasing funding for FEMA to support local governments and NGOs so more of them can come in faster, and modernize border security. Meaning we can tell, bad guy, good guy, bad guy, good guy. They want to do that faster so they can bring more of them in faster. There's nothing in there that tells me you're trying to do a little pushback and actually protecting the southern border. There's nothing in there. It's all accommodating them to help bring them in faster. Does that make any sense? What's wrong with you people? The motion passed 3-2 by a vote. Supervisor Desmond, who supported the idea of asking President Biden to shut down the border, said in a statement he was disappointed with the outcome. San Diego's existing migrant resources are far beyond capacity. But you're looking at reality there, Desmond. You got to live in some kind of fantasy land, because that's the only place where, cranking off letters to people that aren't going to listen to you. How many letters did Greg Abbott say that he's written to President Biden? And he handed one of them to him personally. I think it's like 8. I think he's given Biden 8 letters. Here's what the issues are. Here's what you need to do. What are you going to do there, ice cream boy? Instead of focusing on the safety and welfare of San Diegans, we are spending time and resources on migrant street releases caused by federal negligence. Period. Full stop. This isn't that hard to figure out. But if you listen to these folks on the other side, these, folks in we want to help out everybody. You're what they're essentially asking for is just billions and billions and billions of dollars to bring people from all over the world into the United States, not vetted. And I'm sure it'll work out. I mean, this will be fine. This will be fine. Throw some more money at it, get some more resources, get some more customs and border protection. Desmond also stated he would refuse to support further financing of the Migrant Welcome Center, as you should. I refuse to endorse the establishment of additional shelters as a Band-Aid solution to a much deeper problem. Guy sounds like a Republican, doesn't he? Yeah. These folks that are these folks that are asking for more money and asking for Biden to shut down the border, like he really has that ability. Over time, I think he could affect that by doing with what Abbott is doing. He could certainly have more of a, let's let the world know that it's not game on into the United States. Let's let the world know that. Let's start arresting people, turning them back around. Let's start deporting people. Could do that. But then, it kind of goes against everything that the last 3 years have been all about. But we'll see. I mean, that's the beauty of all this, right? We got to kind of ride this train and see where things are going. And it'll be really interesting. I encourage you guys to take a look and see what Biden says. and then see what Trump says at the border. They're going to be diametrically opposed. Biden's going to try and weasel his way into, these people are suffering. We need to get some more help to them. Great National Guard here in Texas is really doing some kind of a job here. Just complete crap out the side of his mouth. Just, complete double speak. But that's what leaders do when they're in the hot spot. How about him just going down to Texas now? Basically March of 2024. Let's see, is 2024, is that an election year? It is. Yeah, and the election is the number one issue, and so many people are saying the border, number one, isn't secure, and you got to do something, and we're really worried about this, to the point where, people's votes are in jeopardy, right? People's votes are in jeopardy because, hey, this isn't working out for us. All these resources going to these illegals that should be going to other things. They've just been kind of pulled right out from underneath us. We didn't have this issue when the Orange Man Bad was in office. What's the deal? Ice Cream Joe, what have you been doing? We all know what he's been doing, and it's not much. It's executive order after executive order, just basically open up the United States to all the, craziness we have now, including the dude who bashed the poor girl's head in while she's out jogging. But don't focus on that. Don't focus on that one. I mean, you got to take immigration reform, and you just got to think about all the other things. Laken Riley, horrible. Who knows what her parents would say? Right? Terrible. All right. I'm going to end this one right here. Thank you all for joining. Thanks so much for being part of News for Reasonable People. We're growing. I'm live streaming. We're doing our thing. We'll catch up with you in the next one. Until then, we'll see you then. Bye for now.